are the iron workers. There is iron in our name. We are the iron workers, and in our blood iron courage that only we can claim.
To begin with, the reason for the lights and the TV cameras here this evening is because it's been 42 years since there's been a change of business agents in this local union. And to find a record of the last time there was a change, all we have is our memory to look back on. Please God, the ironworkers who are going to be here in the next 50 or 60 years will have this record to look back on, and not only to see how this business manager took office, but to also show the affection that we had for the previous holder of this office.
The passing away of Ray Corbett did indeed leave a large void in this organization, as we all know, in the workings and for Local 40 and its membership. And being informed of such the occasion, that particular night, I had a conversation with one Ray Mullet, and the conversation lasted about 20 minutes, and we talked over a couple of things, and there was no doubt in my mind that here was the one and only guy to try and fill that void left by Ray Corbett. And I asked him to come back out of retirement. Ever so grateful I was that his response was yes. Ray, we are all grateful to have you back again, and you know that we are behind you 110%. You repeat after me. When I say my name, don't say my name. I, John Kelly,
I, Ray Mullet,
do hereby solemnly pledge my honor
do hereby solemnly pledge my honor
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of business manager
of this local union,
of this local union,
that I will support the bylaws of this local union
that I will support the bylaws of this local union
and the Constitution of the International Association of Bridge, Structural, and Ornamental Iron Workers,
and the Constitution of the International Association of Bridge, Structural, and Ornamental Iron Workers,
and that I will enforce the same
and I will enforce the same
to the best of my ability without prejudice or partiality.
to the best of my ability without prejudice or partiality.
Welcome back.
Thank you. You can't imagine the feeling I have standing before you at this moment. The last time I spoke to you, I thanked you for the confidence and the support you had shown me for those 26 years I represented you as a business agent. I hope that I will still have that confidence and support from you, because without it, there is nothing. We are what we are. We're a group of working men and women now looking for the same things. We're all looking for a little bit better way of life, a little bit better way of life for our children. And the sooner we all realize that we're all after the same thing, the better we're all going to be. The one thing that we can't afford to do as a local union is to separate ourselves from within. We're always going to have the problems on the outside of non-union and out-of-towners and this and that and midnight iron workers. We're always going to have that. But that's the history of this organization. This local union was founded in 1904. And at that time, and looking back through the records, you wouldn't believe the troubles they had. Everything was open shop. These guys who formed this local union were there, and they were just trying to organize and have what we have now. It was a dream of theirs to create an organization such as we have now. What we have to do and what our responsibility is to live up to that legacy that's been left to us. However long my administration lasts is insignificant. The important thing is that you have confidence in what we're going to do, and you hold up your end, and I can assure you that anybody that's working for you on this end will hold up their end.
I'll now call in the new apprentices that completed their first year to be sworn in tonight. Now, will you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, John Kelly, hereby solemnly and sincerely pledge my honor that I will not reveal any private business or proceedings of this local union or of the international, or any individual actions of its members, that I will, without equivocation, and to the best of my ability, abide by the Constitution and bylaws, and the particular scale of wages adopted by it, and that I will not knowingly wrong a member of this union, or see one wrong, if it is within my power to prevent the same. Congratulations. Once again, it comes that time in the meeting when we have to remember our dearly departed brothers, John Peso, Anthony Green, Alan Weiss, who passed away this morning, and of course, Raymond Corbett. Would you stand up for a moment of silence, please? May they rest in peace.
August 24th, 1992 will be remembered around America as the day that Hurricane Andrew brought ashore in Florida, bringing with it death and destruction, the likes of which we've never seen down there. When it brought ashore that early morning, your business manager, Ray Corbett, was already up and about his work. He called John Kelly at 4 a.m. He was talking to John Mills, our attorney, Sunday evening late. There's some evidence that he probably was awake every moment of May the 24th that he survived. He told John he was going up to the Tappan Zee Bridge to put those men back to work that he had pulled off the job the previous week. pulled off in an attempt to stir something up, to see if somebody from some governmental agency or somewhere might not come to him and find a way to get that scab contractor off of that job. He knew all that week that the judge's gavel was hanging over his head. He was conscious of it. He knew what it meant to you people, because that judge, all he had to do was rap that gavel once and bingo goes our treasury. He waited a week and he knew he couldn't wait any longer, and he said, I got to put him back to work. So after calling John at 4 a.m. that morning, got in his car and he drove up. And of course, the starting time up there for those fellows was 5:30. He met those men, told them to go back to work, apologized for not being able to do any more for them, but promised that he would, as long as he could, do the best he could for them. Got back in his car, and as they started to drive up, Joe Fader was riding with him, and Joe said he slumped over the wheel. He grabbed him, tried to open his mouth. Ray was grimacing his teeth so hard he couldn't get his mouth open to stick a nitro pill in him. And much to everyone's regret, they knew he was gone. A little while after that, I got a phone call that I guess I knew in my heart someday would come, but hoped never would. Came, called the office, called John. He asked me if I would come back. There was never any doubt in my mind what I would do. The only question was whether or not you wanted me.
We want you. No union without you, Ray.
That's right.
No doubt.
You got that right.
There were a few things that had to be straightened out. Number one, since the election last August, a year ago in August, in Las Vegas, where Ray ran for the office of General President, there had been created some hard feelings and difficult ones between the officers of this local union and our international union. My feeling about that was and is that Ray ran an honorable race. He was defeated. No one ever thought, with the odds he had against him, that he would get as many votes as he did. But he ran, he was defeated, he came back, and he joined us. Now, that was Ray's personal race. I have no axe to grind with the international union for one simple reason. In my mind, it doesn't benefit you fellas one iota for your officers to be arguing with those people down in Washington. They have their job to do, we have our job to do. We're nothing if we're not a member of that organization. We can't be an island by ourselves. We have to belong and we have to participate in it. Because there are enough forces at work today in this country trying to defeat the labor movement without any divisiveness within us. It's essential that we become a part of that international union again and participate in it. That's the way I feel about it. We got a call from the General President, John and I, and he asked us to get down and join him, and we did. We went down and we sat down with him, and we told him what we were about, told him we had no axe to grind with him, and hoped that he had none to grind with us. We shook hands on it and came back, and that's all well and good. John had obligated me that first night. I went down there, and it was okay with them if I come back, but like I said, the only thing that really counted in my heart is this, what exists between you and I, that bond that we've had. So many of you, I've dealt with you on a personal level. I've been involved in so many of your lives, as you know, and you in mine. And I can't tell you the number of times that you have given me a lift just by being in the same room with you. So here we are, gathered with a mission. And the mission is to succeed and to go on from here for what we are, one of the greatest organizations in this country, and I firmly believe the greatest local union in this country. Thank you.
I got no problem with that. I clap.
Ed Cush, business manager of Local 361.
You know, sometimes before I get into some of the things that Ray just mentioned, I like to comment. You know, Ray and I say a few things back and forth to each other about Local 40 and Local 361, and I let him know that if it wasn't for a Local 361 man, he wouldn't be on this earth. His father was a Local 361 man. Well, as you heard Ray say, and he said it very well, there is a great void to be filled in the passing of Ray Corbett. And I can make you this promise now that Ray Mullet and I, and the officers of Locals 40 and 361, working together, and with the help and cooperation of all of you, and with the help and cooperation of Local 361, we're going to go on and fulfill the things that Ray Corbett started. We certainly are mourning the passing of Ray, but we are and should be celebrating his life, celebrating the time that we had him and that he was here. Because Ray Corbett, he affected everyone in this room, certainly. He had a direct effect on every member of 40, 361, and 417, and their families from the negotiations that took place over all these years. And he asked all the time, and the people that he negotiated with are sitting right up here, one of the things he only asked was a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. And that is the thing that we certainly make sure that you get your fair day's pay. And it's up to you guys to make sure that we give the fair day's work, because we have competition out there. We got bad things happening, and it has to come around. And that's all Ray used to say, a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, and that's what you should give them. When I was sitting in St. Patrick's Cathedral, that great cathedral on Fifth Avenue, and thinking about Ray, I couldn't help but think about 12 or 13 years previous to that, when I saw Ray Corbett standing up there on the altar of St. Patrick's Cathedral, and he was giving a eulogy for George Meany, another great labor leader of our time. George Meany, the past president of the AFL-CIO, came from the plumbers. And I was really impressed to see someone that I knew from the neighborhood, someone I saw going around the neighborhood and walking the same places that I walked, and I seen him up there on that altar in St. Patrick's Cathedral, that I was really filled with pride, but it also gave me something else. It just made me think that you can go anywhere you want to go if you try hard enough. And Ray Corbett proved it, and he certainly gave me inspiration to go as far as I can. And I believe by some of the things that I've learned from Ray, it certainly has rubbed off. Anybody that was around him, it certainly rubs off. I don't want to go on, and we start creating. I could say a lot of things, but what my real message is, that right now, and I promised it to you before, we need a bond that is strong, going to have to be stronger than it ever was between Local 40 and Local 361. And it's up to you guys to prove that you are what you have the reputation of having. Being the best ironworkers, not just in this country, in the whole world. Thank you.
You got some nerve getting more applause than me. Desi Shanley, come over here and say a few words about our leader, Ray Corbett.
I'd just like to say, I thank God I knew Ray Corbett for 41 years. He did me a lot of favors, a lot of great things, and I like to remember him as just a great guy. And you fellas, from your applause and everything else, I think you got the best ticket in New York City right now with John Kelly and Ray Mullet, and you're not too... And my godson, Eddie Walsh. Ray, on behalf of myself and the International, if there's any help I can give you or they can give you, you just relay it to me, you or John or Eddie, and I'll take care of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Des. Des is in the Boxers Hall of Fame in the state of New Jersey. Yes, sir.
That's why I can't talk.
I'm going to call upon the executive director of the Allied now to give you a brief history of the Allied and its association with Local 40. You must understand that the Allied represents that group of fair employers that we negotiate our collective bargaining agreements with. And through the years, since we started negotiating with them, we've found them to be honorable men, deserving of our support, deserving in this way. You've got to understand that when these contractors, these steel erectors and fabricators, bid on a particular piece of work, the one thing, the one tangible they have to know, how many working hours will it take a group of Local 40 or 361 ironworkers to do a particular piece of work? They bid these jobs on that basis. If we don't hold up our end, they cannot be successful. Every time they put a bid in on a job, they're rolling the dice. They're betting that it won't rain too many days during that job. They're betting that it won't snow. They're betting that there won't be a strike. There won't be a breakdown in a fabricating shop. They're betting on a lot of things. But the one constant thing that they have to have and they have to depend on is our ability to do the job. As long as they have confidence in us and our ability, we can help them to earn a living. These are the fair guys. These are the guys that do it right, not the guys that do it wrong, that go sneaking around at night. No. These are the good guys. These are the guys we do business with. And representing them as their executive director, Bill Shoesman.
what I thought I would like to tell you is to tell you something about Ray that I don't know that you had seen, something that I've seen and the employers see, and that's a view of Ray Corbett from the contractor's point of view. One of your current officers once told me a number of years ago that while many people are called labor leaders, and I heard the word mentioned today, the only real labor leader he ever met was Ray Corbett. And I kind of agreed, and yeah, right. And then I was saying, yeah, well, you know, I've heard that kind of stuff before. But then I actually thought about it. And the more I looked at Ray and the way Ray handled the affairs of Local 40 and the types of leadership that I saw out there in general, I realized that what I was told was correct. There are many men and women who currently and in the past have held leadership positions in organized labor. All too often, those who are in leadership positions are really just followers. They follow the people who they're supposed to be leading. They try to be all things to all people. They try to avoid making controversial decisions. These decisions oftentimes are unpopular, and the reason they do it is because they don't want to ruffle any feathers, and as a result of ruffling feathers, not be reelected to their leadership positions. Anybody who knew Ray or had any dealings with him from a contractor standpoint and from the membership standpoint knows that Ray didn't act that way. Ray took the bull by the horns. He made all of the tough decisions, and he let the chips fall where they would. I'm sure, and not knowing the details of your organization, that many of the decisions he made may not have been popular with you folks sitting out there. Or the other people that he represented when he was the head of the state AFL-CIO, or any of his other leadership positions. But while this may have been true, Ray wasn't only looking at the small picture. He wasn't only looking at the small decision that he was being made. He looked at the overall picture. What's good for you folks, the people he was leading? What's good for the industry? What's good for working people in the big picture? And he followed his conscience. He voted according to his conscience. It's a unique man who operates like that. And I think you folks, the members of Local 40, and all working people in general, should be grateful to have had Ray for his type of leadership. But there's another side of Ray that I'd like to talk to you about also, for just a few minutes. When I came into my current position, I was 35 years old. Ray was 71, more than twice my age. I don't know about you sitting out there today, but I know very few people who are more than twice my age who I feel comfortable calling a friend, who I even feel comfortable sitting around and talking with. Ray was one of the kind of people that you could sit down, you could talk to, business, socially, and walk away with a great feeling. And he was a great guy. He told some great stories. He was just a good person to be around. He was also the kind of fellow that once he got to know you and you developed a bond, he was the kind of guy who would give you the shirt off of his back. In closing, I'd simply like to say what has been said many times in the past and will probably be said many times in the future. Ray is going to be missed. The industry is going to miss him. Local 40 is going to miss him. And I'm personally going to miss him. I find it hard to think of the Ironworkers or Local 40 and not think of Ray. The work that he accomplished and his memory are going to go on. In this connection, I think you folks, the members of Local 40, are very lucky to have a man like Ray Mullet to call upon. The two Rays spent many years working together. It seems to me that Ray Corbett's best attributes are shared by Ray Mullet and John Kelly. Allied and I personally look forward to a long and fruitful relationship with both Ray Mullet, John Kelly, and Local 40. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Very, very much. I'm going to ask Dick O'Hara to come up and speak about Ray in another phase of his life, that part of his life which dealt with the New York State AFL-CIO, a part of his life with which Dick was very familiar, having served as counsel to the AFL-CIO and witnessed many, many of the conventions and the executive council meetings that went on through the years. Dick O'Hara.
I first met Ray in the late 1950s. I met him at Luchow's at a trustees meeting of the Pension and Welfare Fund of Locals 40 and 361. And that's when Ray wore the dapper three-quarter coat and the snap brim hat and was probably the sharpest guy out of Brooklyn at the moment. It was only shortly thereafter that he ascended to the presidency of the New York State AFL-CIO, where he distinguished himself over 20-some-odd years of service as the president. One of the conventions in the 70s, Ray had a particular candidate that he wanted to get endorsed for the United States Senate. And he put on a hell of a performance, but it was obvious that a number of the unions that were not connected with the building trades were not going to support Ray's candidate, and they were raising hell. So Ray recessed the entire convention, took a couple of guys like Dick Nolan and a few of his other close friends into the synagogue of the Concord Hotel and devised their strategy. And what the strategy was is that they were going to recess the convention, reconvene it down in New York a couple of weeks later, where Ray had the votes. So sure enough, Ray got up and called the convention to order and announced that this convention stands in recess until further call of the president, and paraded down the middle aisle of the main auditorium in the Concord Hotel with his head held high, and through a rain of table knockers, glass ashtrays, and anything else the opposition could get their hands on, but he had taken them and taken them good. Needless to say, the convention was reconvened 2 weeks later at the Commodore Hotel, and through the efforts of the good fairy, Ray's candidate got the endorsement. This is the kind of a remarkable guy who, out of sheer force of will, would get done what he thought was best to get done for the labor movement of the state of New York. You all know that you had the foremost labor leader in the United States as your business manager. So I would simply say, thank you for inviting me. Good night.
Harold Bassin is the individual on his side of the business who taught me that there were people on that side who cared about you. Because without you, he knew that the people he represented wouldn't be anywhere. He knew it was a joint venture between labor and management. It was an industry in whole that he cared about, every part of it. While we used to say that we were public adversaries, but I can assure you that I've taken great, great pride in having him for a personal friend these many years. Here's Harold Bassin.
I want to let you know about my first meeting with ironworkers of the rank and file. When Ray invited me to a local 40 family gathering, he said, at the Malibu Beach Club, I think it's in Long Beach somewhere, and he told me it was like a family picnic. Well, I'm getting to it. So I got there a little late. I must have gotten there by perhaps about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I parked my car in a huge parking lot. By that time, there was no room to park, so I parked at the way end of it. And I walked to the front of the entrance of the Malibu Beach Club. And as I got close to the door, there were double doors. The doors opened, and there were two giants. They looked to me about 7 or 8 feet tall, and like 7 by 7, and they were carrying somebody, a huge individual. One was carrying his legs, and the other was carrying his arms. And they started to swing him and count 1, 2, 3, and then they threw him up in the air, and he landed almost at my feet on the concrete. So I thought to myself, what kind of a picnic is this? That was my first experience. In talking to you, I would rather not dwell about the past. I would rather speak to you about the present and the future, except to tell you one thing, that I must have been, in the 25 years I was at Allied, in about 7 or 8 negotiations with Locals 40 and 361. And I am proud of the fact that every time we produced a new agreement, it was the best agreement for wages, working conditions, and fringe benefits of any iron worker local in the country. This is one of the most important days in the history of Local 40. After 42 years, there is a transition in the leadership of the local. The local is indeed fortunate to have such an able person as Ray Mullet to take over its affairs. It is also fortunate that Ray cares enough about the local and its members to give up his retirement and to undertake the responsibilities, the work, and the headaches in guiding the local through these depressed economic times. I wish you and the Mullet Kelly team all my best. Thank you.
Ray also instituted a program around here, among many others, to deal with the alcohol and drug abuse. I'd like to ask Tommy Burns to say a few words about the help and the cooperation that was extended to him in initiating that program.
I've been fortunate to walk in the shadow of Ray Corbett. You know, he's seen the program that we have today a while back. And in his wisdom, he sat down with a number of the officers of this organization, and they said that they wanted to put something together that could help the people, to reach out and help the suffering people that we have in our ranks. And as much as we all try to think or say, oh, that junkie, that this, there's a lot of people out there, believe me, that this here program that we have today is fortunate enough to show them the respect that they should have. So I want to thank the officers tonight to give me this here opportunity. I also want to convey my condolences to the Corbett family and to the new members we have here today. You have a lot of work to do, believe me, to follow the steps of your brothers and sisters that are here tonight. Thank you.
The next speaker I want to introduce to you is John Mills, who's our present counsel and partner in the firm of O'Hara and Mills. John went to law school while a member of the New York City Fire Department. Here's John Mills.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Some of you have known me as Local 40's lawyer. Some of you before tonight knew that I used to be a firefighter, and I'm sure not many of you knew before Ray told you that I grew up in a working class neighborhood, in fact an ironworker neighborhood in South Brooklyn. I came from a family of 10 kids. My father was a shipyard worker. He was a member of his local union's executive board. And when I was a kid, the name Raymond Corbett was spoken in my house with respect. When I was a kid, Raymond Corbett was a legend. When I was a kid, my friends were iron workers, their fathers were iron workers, and iron working was a different thing then. At least the compensation was a lot different. It was seasonal, as it is now, and all you got for your work was your day's wages, period. There were no pension funds, there were no welfare funds, there were no annuity funds. You got your day's wages, and it was never, never enough. And you wait from season job to season job and try to pick up a day here and a day there to feed your family. And it took tremendous foresight and tremendous political courage for a local union business manager to stand up and say, when we negotiate this contract, we're not going to put it all in the envelope. We're going to put a dime into a fund. And we're going to put a dime over into this fund, and a dime into that fund, and then a quarter, and a nickel, and a quarter, and 35 cents and a dollar. What was that man looking for? That man was looking for the dream that he saw realized. To see the iron worker perform his work and live a life with dignity. With dignity to feed his family, with dignity to clothe his children, and to give them a good education. I never dreamed when I was a kid that I would ever be an attorney. I never dreamed I would ever get to represent the legend of my neighborhood. But 20 years ago, that happened. And I joined Dick O'Hara's firm, and I got to know Ray Corbett. Ray and I really got close about 15 years ago on a case up in White Plains where Spancrete, a structural concrete company, was doing a job with laborers. And Ray went up there at the Westchester Galleria and jumped up on top of a crane and immobilized the crane and stopped the job. And we wound up in court, and I went up there and I gave an impassioned oratory before the judge about what was happening, what was going on. And Ray thought the judge was very impressed with what I had to say. What he didn't realize was that the judge was very impressed with a 65-year-old man who would jump up on a crane and say, "This job stops." But that was Ray all over. Ray was a heads-on, in-your-face type of guy. He was a tough, tough taskmaster. He demanded excellence. He was a teacher. He was a labor theorist. He was a labor philosopher. But all of that is just words. Ray demanded that the words be put into action. Ray demanded that his ideas be put into action for his iron workers. You look at some of the things that he has accomplished. I know what Ray has done for me. I know what he's taught me. I know that Ray has left an indelible imprint upon the lives of everyone in this room. The young apprentices who are indentured tonight, long after most of us are gone, throughout your entire working careers and into your retirement, you are going to be enjoying benefits that were there because a man by the name of Raymond R. Corbett said those benefits should be there. Look at what you've gained in the last 15 years alone, the period when I was most closely associated with Ray. And I take no credit for these things because they weren't my ideas. They were Ray saying, do this, do that. Don't tell me you can't do it. Tell me how to do it. You have a topping out fund. You have a building over on 451 Park Avenue South that was purchased as a 3-story building, gutted, renovated, gutted again, made into a 10-story building. The total capital investment in that building was under $10 million. The building today is worth $25 million, and it's owned by the pension fund of the iron workers of locals 40, 361, and 417. Some years ago, Ray came to us and said, we have a lot of money in the pension fund. We have a lot of money in the annuity fund. We put it out to investors. We try to get a return on it. Can't we do something for the iron workers? Why can't we give home mortgages to the iron workers? We said, well, we can, Ray, but there's a lot of problems. Don't tell me about the problems. Ray said, do it. Iron Equity, jointly owned by the annuity fund and the pension fund of Locals 40, 361, and 417. To date, in the last 4 years, 300 ironworkers have home mortgages at discount rates, at discount closing rates. Mortgages and homes they could never afford before because Raymond said, do it. And we did it. On the last night before Ray died, as Ray Mullet told you, I was on the phone with him very late at night. I was before you a few months ago, and we told you that we're having a problem that hadn't reared its head in New York for a long time, and that's the non-union contractor. And up on the Tappan Zee Bridge, the Thruway Authority awarded a contract to a rat contractor at the very time when our men were working for Howland Construction right on that bridge. And we brought court actions, and we were back and forth, and they dragged us into court. And the week before he died, as Ray said, Raymond said, we got to stir the pot. I got to pull the men off that job. I said, Ray, we got a big problem. Got to do it. And he did it. And he did stir the pot. But that Sunday night, I got a call from the National Labor Relations Board, and they said, we're going back into court tomorrow. We're bringing you back before the judge. They were talking about contempt and criminal contempt and heavy fines. And I got on the phone with Raymond, and I said, Ray, this is what we got to do. The men got to go back to work. He was extremely, extremely reluctant to do that. And anyone who knows Ray knows that what I mean was that I was holding the phone out here as Ray was telling me that he did not want to do that. But Ray was Ray, and Ray always knew which way to go, and finally he said, you're right, kid, you're right. Okay, I'll do it. I'll put him back to work. He said, but I'm going up there tomorrow morning to do it myself. That was sometime after midnight. The next thing, 4 o'clock that afternoon, I got a call that Ray had collapsed. The last time I talked to Ray, he was doing what he loved best, working for you, working for his ironworkers and representing his ironworkers the best way he knew how. To the very end of his life, a long, long life, a long and noble life. So I've had the privilege for the last 20 years of representing a legend, but I found out something because I got very close to him. I got to know his family and he got to know mine. I found out that Ray was more than a legend. Ray was a living, breathing human being who loved people, who loved the people he represented, who wanted nothing but to better their lives. He was a tough taskmaster. He expected excellence in himself. He expected excellence in us, and he expected excellence in you. He was a great man, a good friend, and I'll never forget him. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John Mills. I'm going to ask John Kelly to say a few words now. John.
No Ray Corbett, the work for him was indeed a blessing and an experience second to none for me. I'm a very fortunate man to have worked with him and be associated with him, and I will never forget him. Remembering him in my own way will be what each letter of his name and what they stood for. I relate these letters in this manner. The letter C for courage of his convictions, of which he stood steadfast. O for obliging, which he always was to those that sought his assistance. R for retreat, a word which he did not know the meaning of. The letter B
which stands for benefits which raise the standing of living for the iron workers by obtaining and ever increasing the benefits for us, such as the unemployment, compensation, topping out, vacation, pension, health, mortgage, and last but not least, the annuity. Adding this all to the scale of wages we earn make us one of the front runners in all of the country. The letter E for extra, because that is what he was, something extra. T for thanks to the Almighty God that he guided him to our direction, Local 40. And the last T is to you, Ray Corbett. That is thanks, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Ray Corbett was born at a unique time in the history of the labor movement. He was born in 1915. Woodrow Wilson was the President of the United States. When he was 14 years old, he experienced the stock market crash, that Black Tuesday. He was 17 years old. President Franklin Roosevelt was elected president. He was 18 years old when the reformation of the labor movement in this country started. When Roosevelt became president, first thing he did was institute the National Recovery Act. Shortly thereafter, he instituted a program to get some young men busy, get them out of the streets, get them to work. Started the Civilian Conservation Corps, known as the CCC. They gave these young men a uniform, they gave them a job, they gave them 3 meals a day, and they gave them $30 a month. All you had to do was sign up, go over to Fort Dix, get your green uniform, and take off for points unknown. They worked at reforestation, building roads around the country. Ray managed to get himself out to San Francisco, California, entered a Golden Glove type boxing tournament. He liked to say he won it, he was a champion. And whether he was or not, he was always a champion to us. 1946, Ray Corbett was elected a vice president of Local 40. Jim Cole saw in him at that time a rare talent. He singled him out as a young man to watch, and watch he did. There came a time in 1950 when Jim Cole was called by the then General President, John Lyons Sr. John Lyons wanted Jim to go to work for the International Union and to take over the presidency of the District Council in New York. He asked, was there anyone you could leave to take your job? Jim said, I have the utmost confidence in a young man named Ray Corbett. He told Ray that year that he wanted him to take over the job, and Ray loved to tell the story that he replied to Jim, Jim, I don't know whether I'm good enough. Jim responded that, Ray, if I didn't think you were good enough, I wouldn't offer you the job. It wasn't long after he was serving as business agent in 1952 or 3, I believe, he instituted a local union pension plan. A local union pension plan, and when he spoke about the possibility of some iron workers someday being able to collect the enormous sum of $500 a month for a pension, and wouldn't that be something? Did he start something, or did he start something? His legacy, what he's left to you and me and our families, will never be forgotten. And I hope that this expression of gratitude and thanks for what he's done for us tonight will stand as a living tribute to him and what he stood for. And I know, as he often did when I would be up and saying something and in his behalf or something, he'd often give me a nudge or a kick or something and to say something else or to get up and keep talking or something. And I can almost hear him nudging me now saying, "Tell him one more thing, Raymond. Tell him I did it my way." So with that, I'd like to say good night to you and thank you.
Anything and everything within this union as a whole, I will remember because of Ray Corbett. All that he's done for the people of the local, the membership of the local, the officers of the local, and his family.
I wanted to become an iron worker, so I went down to Broadway Central, the old hall, and spoke to Jerry Place, and Ray Corbett had just walked in. And he said, "What do you want, son?" I said, "I need a job, sir." And he said, "What can you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a pitman on a crane." So he told Jerry, "We need a man like this." And unbeknownst to me, with the confidence that he had in me, I gained more confidence. And in 2 days, he called me at my house, and I went to work.
I come in this country. I'm iron working in Brazil. I respect so much how the union is strong in one man. Look, Ray Corbett do so much for us.
That's my father and myself atop the Empire State Television Tower. We were erecting that tower in 1949. I was growing up during the Depression, and somebody had to go out and help provide, along with the breadwinner, my dad, for the family. So you go to work under whatever conditions existed. A great deal of the hazards that existed in those days, which no one seemed to care about, have been corrected. We have the best of benefits that any iron worker anywhere in this country or Canada can enjoy. We have them here in New York. I'm very proud of the contracts and agreements that I've signed for this local union.
Ray Corbett left us at a time of unemployment, non-union inroads into our working area, political unrest in the country. But he also left us with a determination to continue in the spirit of hard work and dedication that he demonstrated throughout his tenure as business manager of this local union. And with that legacy that he's left us, we can continue and even write new chapters in the history of this great local union.
We are the iron workers, and in our blood, iron courage that only we can